Well, hello and welcome to the show. Glad you've joined us this week. We're going to talk about building the ranch horse, what it takes to get your horse ready to work cattle, what it takes to get your horse ready to handle a rope. All of that's coming up right here on Discovering the Horseman Within.
That one true horse, the perfect partner built to ride. One true horse, a bond that cannot be denied. You would search forever just to have the chance to take a ride on one true horse. Gonna take a ride on one true horse.
Discovering the Horseman Within with Ken McNabb, presented by Weaver Leather.
There's always been an undying loyalty between horse and horseman. It's a partnership built one day at a time through pure and honest dealing. Whether you ride for work, trail, or competition, Weaver Leather manufactures quality products built from only top-grade materials and always backed by our 100% satisfaction guarantee. Because your tack is the only thing that comes between you and your horse. Ride the brand with Weaver Leather.
Don't miss your chance to ride with Ken McNabb in 2015. Ken brings his years of experience to both people and horses in clinics and events from coast to coast. Join Ken as he creates a unique environment where each horse is trained using gentle methods and the rider is coached to become their personal best. Call our office or visit kenmcnabb.com to reserve your space now. And be sure to join Ken on Facebook for updates, tips, and more. Discover the horseman within you with Ken McNabb.
When I'm ready to start working livestock on my horse, I want to make sure I have full body control. And I want to know that I have the exercises that are necessary to put my horse in the right position to handle cattle. Everything I do, I like my horse soft, right? So when I pick up on those reins, I want that horse to come back to me nice and soft. And I'm going to start right there. I need control over my horse's front end. Not his hind end that much when I'm working livestock, certainly some, but not that much. But I've got to have his front end. So I get his front end through the use of his nose. His nose unlocks the door to his front end. So the first exercise I'm going to work on is just a really basic, simple turn over the hindquarters. I just like to walk my horse forward. A true rollback is a stop going forward, do a 180 and go the other direction. Mostly in a straight line. I like to work in a circle because it gets my horse started that general direction. My inside leg is in position 2 right here underneath me, keeping his rib cage arced out and alive. My outside leg is in position 1, moving his shoulders the direction his nose is pointed. So all I want to do now is just take my inside leg off and bring that front end around and ride out of there and push off. I really want to push off. Now, Chapo has done this quite a little bit. He's had a fair amount of this kind of work done with him, but I'm still going to come back and kind of review it before I start building a little more, okay? So now I've switched legs, and my inside leg has become my right leg. It's in position 2. My left leg is my outside leg, and it's keeping this horse following his nose, and I'm just going to take that inside leg off and bring that horse around right there. Now you notice the stop, I don't actually stop my horse. It's more like a hesitation. If we were riding in a dressage saddle, we might call it a half halt. It's not even quite a half halt. Okay, but I cause him to pause and just take my leg and move that front end around when the hind end pauses. The reason I don't stop and then try to move the front end around at this stage is that it's too difficult for the horse to stop the momentum and start the momentum. Once I have my horse to where he can actually really bring his front end around there, then I can start working on it in a stop, and then I can start working on it in a straight line. So we're just gonna build on this a little bit more. Take that outside leg on position 1, inside leg comes off, make that change of directions inside the turn. Riding back off, inside leg comes off position 2, the outside leg just carries him right through. So at this point, I'm gonna start straightening out my exercise. And I'm just gonna take the same approach, no stop to it. Bring that front end around, right up here. Inside leg facing the camera, moves his ribs out of the way. Outside leg, position 1, moves that horse through. My leg switches positions, okay? And so you're gonna notice my horse is always facing the camera. I want you to envision that you're the cow, okay? So as I come across here, my horse is looking at the cow, really paying attention. That leg comes off, outside leg comes on. Now right here, you notice I just transitioned back to where he's looking at the camera, or looking at the cow again. I'm just riding across here, transition that front end around. No stop, not yet, but also not a rounded corner. What do I mean by not a rounded corner? Well, a lot of times you'll see people make turns like this trying to chase livestock. That's a rounded corner. I want you to think of the old Western movies where two men walk out on the street and face each other in a gunfight, and the first guy to draw loses because the hero's obviously faster. Reality is that doesn't work. Reality is the first guy to move wins because you aren't fast enough, nobody is, to overcome that initial first movement. It's the same thing when we're working cattle, and we're going to talk about that through this whole series. When that cow gets away from you, if you fall into following them, you're always going to be chasing the 8-ball, okay? But by keeping your horse square over his hind end and riding him off, he's learning how to keep a straight line, and he doesn't have to follow the cow. This time we're going to stop, and we're just going to step that horse around really nice. And I want to push off. Now you see how much fluid movement we actually lost there, okay? So I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna back him just a step and bring that front end around and step him off of there. Slow back down. Stop. Back up a step. Whoa, backed up way more than I wanted to. I'm gonna push that shoulder around. Why did I push the shoulder around? Because he shoved his nose out and he didn't actually step around nice and clean. Now, trot off. I want him to step out of there faster. He's kind of being lazy about how he leaves, and Chapo's pretty laid back that way. I want him to push off. Stop. Back a step, come through, trot off. Stop. Now right there, did you notice when I stopped him, he shoved his nose into the bit? So I'm gonna take a moment and just ride him back up into the bit. I'm not gonna have him shove his nose into that bit. Back him up, that step or two, trot off. We ride up over here, stop, there. That's what I wanna see is when he stops, that nose needs to stay soft in my hand. If my horse is shoving his nose out, he's going to his front end. When he goes to his front end, he can't move on a cow anywhere near fast enough. I'm gonna move him around here. And right there again, that shoulder, he didn't move that shoulder over. So I just use my leg and come back and say, hey, those shoulders need to move. Position 1 with my outside leg says bring that shoulder around. Now, step off out of here. There. Right there, he did it again going this way. Shoved his nose into that rein and poked it out. Trot him up here. There's the stop. This end we're having trouble moving the shoulders. All of a sudden, this end we're having trouble on the stop. There, much better. That stop he actually used his hind end, didn't poke his nose out. So I let him sit there for a minute. Back him up a step or two, and I'm gonna take him to the left away from the camera because that seems to be his bad side. So I'm actually gonna work here, push up on his nose a little bit. What do I mean by that? I mean push his hindquarters up underneath him because he's wanting to push his nose out again. And move him to the left, right there. Now drive out of there. There's that stop. Back up, come through. There's that stop. Now again, he hit his front end. How do I know that? Do you see his hind end stick out? Anytime your horse's hind end comes off the line, it's because they're hitting on their front end. If they hit on their front end, you need to drive them forward. Drive them forward, come through here, and trot off. That stop wasn't that great, so back up quickly, no rest. He didn't hit on his front end, however. Back up, I'm gonna take him away from the camera. I'm gonna take him past where we've been stopping. Trot him out here, put a little more onto him. He's anticipating the stop a little bit. So, I'm gonna stop him in the middle, kind of get after him a little bit and say, hey, you need to pay attention to me, not the fence line. Right there, I'm gonna take a hold of him, back him up a little bit. He's kind of ignoring me. So you can see, I want him right here, right now, every time I ask, right? Much better. I want to make sure that I have these simple things before I try to take my horse any further.
Don't miss your chance to ride with Ken McNabb. Ken brings his years of experience to both people and horses in clinics and events from coast to coast. Call our office or visit kenmcnabb.com to reserve your space now. And be sure to join Ken on Facebook for updates, tips, and more. Discover the horseman within you with Ken McNabb.
You know, I said the stop and rollback are one of the most important exercises your horse can know in order to handle livestock, probably besides having obviously a natural desire to. But one of the things that's critically important is that that horse back up. So my horse isn't stopping where I want him to stop. This isn't what I was scheduling for today, but I can't take my horse forward if I don't have enough stop. So how do I really get a stop? I have to really get a stop in my backup, okay? So I just want to take a minute or two, if you'll allow me here, just to improve my horse's backup. He's just not coming back. You notice he's just sluggish. So I'm going to use my legs, and when I do, he says, hey, I'm going forward. Well, that's because he doesn't understand how to get back. So I'm going to use my legs here and keep sitting in this position right there until I feel that horse come up. Till I feel his front end, not rear, but his front end lift up and he steps back quicker. There's no sense in even trying to take him any further if that drag backwards is what I've got. When I go to load him up to work a cow, I need him to be there right now. So one of the things that I think is critical in keeping my ranch horses from getting hot is that when they're working livestock, they can't ever feel panicked, right? So if I can't get him where I want him smoothly, then I'm gonna start pushing and then he's gonna feel panicked. So right here and right now, I just wanna get that body straight and get him coming backwards. And what I'd really like to see is him backing with no pressure. So right there, he backed about one step with no pressure, which is okay, that's a nice place to start. So I just ride up here and I ask for that backup. And you see that hesitation. I want that hesitation to go away. And all of that nonsense with his head, that's where he's resisting my legs or my hands. I have to take that resistance out. How do I take that resistance out? Well, you do it 2 or 3 ways. One, you show the horse where you actually want him to be, right? You show the horse where you want him to be, and then you release him there. And once he figures out that that's how he gets a release, then he's gonna be there more often. So right now I ride up and my stop position and my back position are the same. Because what I really want my horse to do is think about backing when I ask him to stop. I want him to, in order to back, he's gotta drive that hindquarters up underneath of himself and really get back, okay? So if he drives that hindquarters up underneath of himself, what's he gonna do? He's gonna stop going forward. I back him up using my legs the same as I would going forward. I just rotate my legs 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and I want this horse to back up. Now, when I ride forward, you'll notice I don't pedal going forward. I don't bump, 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 bump. If I wanted to pedal, I'd ride a bicycle. Going backwards needs to be the same thing. When I ask him to go backwards, I want my legs off of him. When the movement dies, my legs come on. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, until that horse right there backs up a step or two without me babysitting him. So this is just where he is for today, right? I wanted him to be a little bit further, but for right now, Chapo's just saying, hey, Ken, I kind of got a hang up. And I think it's one of the most important things in working with our horses is that when they have a hang up, there we go, we need to be understanding of that. Okay, so now what I've got to do is get him where he's coming back a little bit better for me. I want to make sure I haven't lost my stop at the end. There we go. That's what I thought. Because I'm rolling forward at the end of every stop, he's starting to think, he's starting to anticipate, and he thinks the end of the movement means go forward again. So I want to make sure I don't lose that. I don't want to get my horse hot and jiggy. I want to keep the whole piece together. Riding forward here. Sit to that back up. A lot less hesitation. Nose down nice and soft. I haven't kicked him. There's the first time I've used my legs. When I use my legs, I use my hands because he wants to go forward. Otherwise, my hands should be very, very soft, very, very light. Good. Chapo's an incredible 4-year-old. He's got a great disposition. He's as kind and gentle as you'd want one to be. Very, very loving horse. But every now and then, a little bit given to being a little lazy. Okay, so that's not a big problem to overcome. Actually, I don't mind a little bit of laziness now and then, as long as in the long run, my horse is getting better every time I ride him and the laziness starts to go away. If you're gonna pick a problem, laziness is probably the one I wanna pick. Shift my seat right there. Get that back up coming backwards. All right, now I'm gonna start taking his hind end away as we back up. And I'm just gonna teach him a doubling exercise, and you're gonna see in this series where this exercise is very important when we're working cattle. I'm gonna back him up, and I want his hind end to come around behind me right there. Once that hind end comes around me, I'm gonna switch legs and bring the front end through. Okay? A lot of times I'm gonna have to back him and reposition him to work a cow. So I wanna have his whole body under my control. This doubling exercise is one that I use a lot. Back him up, take his hindquarters away. I want his hindquarters to go to the left. I've got his nose bent to the right. I want his hindquarters to go to the left. Now my left leg pushes his shoulders around that right inside hind leg. Okay, and he's shaped up and ready to turn on the cow. This is an exercise, this doubling exercise that I think is so important. Get that hind end shaped around there. Get him back in a little bit of a circle, get that hind end stepping around. Now switch, my left leg comes in and moves over. How am I backing the circle? I've got my inside leg, we're gonna go this direction. My inside leg in position 3. Remember what the position 3 does? Moves the hindquarters. When I started, I told you we need a little bit of control over the hindquarters. Mostly we work our front end. Get that horse soft, get that hind end stepping around. Now that leg comes off, and this leg goes to position 1 and carries him around. Okay? So again, we're gonna work, we ride up here, set into that stop, right there. My leg is position 3. We're moving that hindquarters around. Left leg's on position 3, right leg is off of him. Now left leg comes off and right leg comes on in position 1. And move that horse around and get him to snap out of there. I want him to come out of there with a little bit more momentum than he's been coming out of there. Back him up here. Move that hind end around. My right leg's position 3. Left leg comes to position 1. Take him out of there. Back him up, roll those hindquarters around. Position 1, come on out of there. You don't want to try to make a 360, you're really wanting a 180 out of this exercise. Position 3, move those hindquarters around. As soon as they start around, inside leg comes off, outside leg comes on. This is just a couple of the exercises that I think are critically important in getting your horse ready to handle cattle. I'm ready to start putting this horse on cattle. We'll bring some slow cows in here and just have a good time with that.
Don't miss your chance to ride with Ken McNabb in 2015. Ken brings his years of experience to both people and horses in clinics and events from coast to coast. Join Ken as he creates a unique environment where each horse is trained using gentle methods and the rider is coached to become their personal best. Call our office or visit kenmcnabb.com to reserve your space now. And be sure to join Ken on Facebook for updates, tips, and more. Discover the horseman within you with Ken McNabb.
I'm looking forward to seeing you at my upcoming ranch horse sale. Remember, it's the first Saturday in June. You can contact me, my office, 307-645-3149, or the Diamond McNabb Ranch Horse Sale Office at 307-298-5030.
2007 model Gildan right here, number 55.
There's always been an undying loyalty between horse and horseman. It's a partnership built one day at a time through pure and honest dealing. Whether you ride for work, trail, or competition, Weaver Leather manufactures quality products built from only top-grade materials and always backed by our 100% satisfaction guarantee. Because your tack is the only thing that comes between you and your horse. Ride the brand with Weaver Leather.
Discovering the horseman within with Ken McNabb has been brought to you by Weaver Leather.
Ownership. It's taking responsibility for our actions and the results thereof. Ownership is one of those character traits that is hard to master. It is so easy to try to shrug something off or just stay quiet and let it go by and hope that nobody notices. The truth is, lots of times I have to take ownership for where my horse is. Lots of times I have to realize, man, I created this in my horse. In fact, one of my favorite things to tell people is your horse, your dog, and your child are all directly mirror images of who you are, right? So take ownership for your actions, your consistency. I'll never forget the day that lesson was driven home to me personally. My old paint and stud horse, Bo, I called him to me and he looked over at me and I said, hey, come on, get over here. And he trotted right on over. And a little while later, I called my dog and I called him to me and he stopped what he was doing and he looked at me and I said, hey, come on, get over here. And he trotted over. And about an hour later, I was working around inside the indoor arena riding and Kurt was over by the gate. He was about 4 years old. And I said, hey, Kurt, come here for a minute. And he stopped what he was doing and he looked at me. And I said, hey, did you hear me? And instantly he trotted right on over to me and it hit me like a ton of bricks. All three of them waited for the second request. That meant I had taught them that the first request could be totally ignored. We have a saying in our household now, I say it, the boys finish it. I say first time, they say every time. That's not for them, that's for me. That's to remind me to hold that level of consistency because they have no problem reaching up to the level of expectation as long as I set the expectation. In our life, it's easy lots of times to let things slide by. I think about the kids that work for me. If some kid bangs a truck into a tree and they come back and they tell me, gosh, Ken, I'm really sorry. I banged up the truck. I frequently don't, get too upset over it. Don't really care that much at all. We got to fix it, but it's not something to get the end of the world. If that same kid were to come back and park the truck in the yard and the next morning I look at the truck and it's all banged up, and I go to the barn for a morning meeting and say, hey, what happened to the truck? And everybody kind of, I don't know, nobody knows what happened. Nobody takes ownership. It's instantly frustrating. In our personal lives, The moment we take ownership for where we are, for our mistakes, doesn't matter if we're behind on a house payment, a truck payment, or maybe we are the one that made the mistake at the workplace. Doesn't matter what it is. If we take ownership for it, it's amazing how fast people have empathy and say, hey, no problem, how can we help you clean this up? Thank you so much for joining us on this show. You know I love bringing them to you. Remember, next week we're going to be starting him on cattle. Make sure you tune in for that. And until then, may God bless the trails you ride.
Find out more about Ken McNabb horsemanship at kenmcnabb.com.
That one true horse, the perfect partner built to ride. One true horse, a bond that cannot be denied. You would search forever just to have the chance to take a ride.